Recording with Dr. Peter McCullough, the one and only, on Monday, September 9th, 2024 at 6:01 p.m. Eastern Time. You've been on here a zillion times before. In the description, guys, you can find the link to his Twitter, to his Substack, to his book, which he came on here with John Lake to talk about. And I think all things Dr. McCullough are in the description. Dr. McCullough, how are you doing, sir?
It's great to be back, Tommy. All is right with the world. Football is back. It's the autumn. The temperatures have cooled in Texas. Everyone's out at restaurants and walking their dogs, and seems like things seem pretty good. But I think what you're going to tell me is there's a lot of things brewing that indicate that's not the case.
I fear that, and I also want to make sure that it's okay to just enjoy life. You don't want to sit back and go, man, the sun's setting, the birds are chirping. What's coming? Because that, in a way, that's you're robbing yourself of enjoying life. So, if everything seems okay, I mean, I'm just gonna take it. Because if it's not gonna be okay, it's not gonna be okay. But I don't think life is, I don't think life's long enough or short enough, whatever you want to call it, to just assume it's going to get worse. So it's my little brother sent me like a meme, and it's like work hard, but just assume everything's going to turn out well because it might not, but then just deal with it when it's here. But you might as well. It's like shredding, you probably weren't because you're a straight A guy, but you ever take a test in college or something and you know it wasn't your best performance, but you go and then you get an email and it goes, test scores are up and it's Friday night. And you're like, I can't change the test score, but I do have a big weekend. I want to go out to the bars and have fun. I can look at that test, see I got an F, and have a miserable weekend, or I can shred and curse cat. I can assume I maybe got an A, and I'll deal with it on Friday, or deal with it on Sunday. But regardless, I'm just gonna assume it's good. So I get what you're saying. It's calm, it's quiet, it's beautiful, and it feels like something's off. But you know, what a sad state to be surrounded by God's glory and then go, but something's coming. That's, not to rob ourselves, not to immediately dive down the philosophical rabbit hole, but my 2 cents.
Well, it's not as if bullets are flying, or our homes and our schools and businesses are being bombed, and we're sleeping out in on tents out in the desert. We're pretty comfortable here in the United States, and things are pretty quiet. Going back to these college grades, I went through college at the time, of course, before computers and
Yeah.
before the internet. And you know what they used to do, Tommy? They used to post the grades outside of the professor's lab or office on the wall. Literally, it would be a printout, and they would tape it up, and you'd actually have your name and your grade so everyone could see. There was no privacy back in the day. And once the rumor was out that the grades were up, everyone made the trek over to the chemistry building or biology building. And then we look at our grades, and you'd see people either jumping for joy, or people like incompletely crushed on the floor. Couldn't believe what happened with the test. And it's interesting. I just finished with patients today. And when we're younger, the tests we take are paper and pencil tests, or nowadays computer tests or essays. But the type of tests when you take when you're older, Tommy, when you're 50 and 60 and 70 and 80, believe it or not, they're blood tests, EKGs, X-rays, ultrasounds, and you want to pass your test. It's the same desire,
Never
but
ends.
now you don't have control over it. I mean, it's just the blood test is going to show what it's going to show. And I just finished with a patient who's just devastated. She took 2 COVID-19 vaccines, felt bad, and then she's had, 2024 relentless COVID. And now we measured her antibodies against the spike protein, and we used the LabCorp extended range assay. It's provided by Roche Alexis, a company in Europe. And their normal is less than 1. The published studies show just, occasional COVID will be kind of 0 to 1,000 on these quantitative units. And then it gets progressively higher with the vaccine and more severe COVID. She was unmeasurably high, over 25,000. And she's absolutely miserable, can't sleep, post-exertional malaise. She was crying. is trying everything. And it's just, so we have learned to measure the antibodies against spike protein. If anybody out there is struggling with long COVID or after the vaccine, get your doctor to order the test, which is a proxy for how much spike protein's in the body, so we can start to size up what we need to do in terms of detoxification.
So that's a different, I guess, route other than just getting a normal positive. Like I got COVID at the end of July, took a COVID test positive, isolate. But this is different than that.
This is a blood test. This is a blood test. You probably took the nasal test, the
Hmm.
antigen test, what have you. Yeah. So this is a blood test, Tommy. So you can see quantitatively how much spike, at least that your immune system is seeing. It's an antibody test, but there's enough data, enough clinical experience to show the symptoms are related to the antibody levels. Now, one of the reasons why she got COVID, the reason why these really high antibody levels didn't protect her, is we now have learned that the body gets tricked by the vaccines, and instead of producing the neutralizing IgG1 and 2, it starts to produce, it shifts to the useless IgG4. So chances are almost everything we measure is IgG4. It's really high because there's a lot of spike protein, but she's really sick because the IgG4 is useless. It doesn't bind the spike.
Hmm. So, and what is so it's clearly something it's in your subconscious, to say it's beautiful, football's back, the weather's changing, but something's coming. Is that the general feeling of disease X? Is that your general observation on they successfully injured the ex-president with a bullet 2 months ago, that the election's in what, 8 weeks? But what's brewing? What's brewing in your mind then? No right or wrong answer. What's brewing in your subconscious?
I think we've seen I don't think they're feigned attempts. I just think they're feeble attempts to try to scare the world into another global pandemic. Monkeypox, we've seen two attempts at this, 2022, now in 2024. Monkeypox is a skin rash. It's related to cowpox, camelpox, smallpox. Vast majority, it's self-limited. We have a very effective drug to treat it called tecovirimat. It's available on GoodRx. You can get it anywhere around. So, the first round of we learned actually 2003 now, Anthony Fauci had funded gain-of-function research on monkeypox. We've seen those documents, and sure enough, here we are in 2022, and we're told that monkeypox has gotten into the gay bisexual community in Europe, quickly spread to the United States. We had a U.S. national public health emergency declared by Biden, Secretary Becerra. What happened there is we had about 35,000 gay and bisexual men get monkeypox, but vast majority was a self-limited rash, no treatment, small number of people were treated, 58 deaths. And I don't think they died of monkeypox. The vast majority had advanced untreated HIV. So it was really the compilation of everything they had. They had other opportunistic infections. About 1 million people took a monkeypox vaccine. Looks like it doesn't work, doesn't provide any protection, and then causes myocarditis. The smallpox vaccine that we got, looks like those who took the smallpox actually do get some partial protection. What you don't want to do is take the smallpox vaccine as a kid and then go ahead and take the monkeypox vaccine. So, anybody born before 1972, like myself, probably had the smallpox vaccine, which I did. The last thing I want to do is take a monkeypox vaccine and get myocarditis. So we're advising no vaccine for monkeypox and just tecovirimat oral IV for the higher risk cases, and problem solved. Now here we are, 2024, monkeypox 2.0. Now there's about 16,000 cases in the Congo. There's been several hundred deaths, but only 10% of cases have actually had a test to prove that it's monkeypox. So it's just kind of a clinical diagnosis. And Congo is one of the poorest countries in the world, probably zero healthcare, zero antibiotic coverage. They don't have tecovirimat. So it's a different story, but Cabresis, Tedros in the WHO doesn't give you all those details. He just tells you there's a monkeypox emergency of public health importance. And, there was a call for monkeypox vaccines, more of them 5 days before the WHO call. And the Bavarian Nordic, Genios, Bavarian Nordic, their stock skyrocketed with this most recent call. and they're churning out more of the Bavarian Nordic Jynneos vaccine, the one that doesn't work too well and causes myocarditis.
When you said continuing not feigned but feeble attempts to scare the world into another pandemic, what it what is your take on that? That not that they're trying to push into a pandemic, but feeble attempts. So feeble attempts are if there's not that's not coming from a place of power. You could say COVID was not feeble. That came in that came in like a tidal wave. It just
Mm-hmm.
blindsided everything. It sucked the oxygen out of the air. It shut down the world. Feeble attempts, I don't know, kind of conjure the feeling of waning power.
Mm-hmm.
Like the old
Mm-hmm.
lion still trying to rule the plains. It's not the same. The true power, whatever it is, be it COVID, be it a terror attack, be it a nuclear bomb, those aren't feeble. Think about the United States going into mainland Japan for unconditional surrender, or Germany, the firebombing of Dresden, the atomic bombs of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Those weren't those weren't kind of like limp-wristed half, wet noodle. Like, hey, you stop it. It was unconditional surrender. We're going to vaporize your country. What do you, so beyond it being a pandemic, regardless of what it is, pandemic, shooting Trump, what do you make of it being feeble attempts?
Well, yeah, let's talk about the other one though, and that's bird
Sure.
flu.
Oh
Been
yeah.
around for over 100 years, reviewed by Lysette and colleagues. This version of the bird flu, clade 2, 3, 4, 4, 6, very mild, no large numbers of animals dying. The humans that have gotten it's like pink eye. No, U.S. has never had a bird flu death ever because we have antivirals, antibiotics, and shouldn't happen. So this idea of Michigan calling it a state of heightened emergency, Colorado, ordering the chickens to be killed and what have you, it's all overkill. PCR testing on farms. It's just another wave of bird flu. And again, gain of function research, McCullough Foundation research has nailed this down. We actually have a manuscript that going through the peer reviewed process, essentially nailing it that came out of the USDA research lab in Athens, Georgia. So, monkeypox, bird flu, old problems, been around for a long time, and the public health agencies, making this feeble attempt of conjuring up fear. Again, the solution for bird flu, don't forget, is a vaccine. So, no mention of the 4 antivirals that we have available or secondary antibiotics. Iodine eye drops and sprays and gargles work great for this. No, it's got to have a vaccine. In fact, investment now. We have the Sequarians Audens vaccine, which is an antigen-based vaccine, and that's terrible. In their trial of normal human volunteers, where they were just trying to get an antibody response, people died with their vaccine. That's how bad this thing is. The FDA approved that in 2021. Now, the Gates Foundation, CEPI, investing in self-replicating messenger RNA bird flu vaccines. So, in the European Union already bought 40 million doses of the CSL vaccine, the Sequarius Audens vaccine, and they are, already vaccinating people in Finland. United States, with no oversight or approval, just invested $176 million in Moderna to make a messenger RNA bird flu vaccine. Now, Moderna is loaded with tens of billions of dollars of revenue from COVID. They don't need the government to pay them money to develop a bird flu vaccine. It should be market driven. If they want to develop one, go ahead and spend their money and do it. So we know that these are somehow government coordinated attempts. They're feeble because they just don't conjure up much fear. Not only that, Tommy, they've had terrible marketing. I mean, think about monkeypox. I mean, does that instill fear into the average person walking down the street outside? And so the CDC tried to change it, say, well, it's Mpox. It just didn't have it. How about bird flu? So, the name was changed to highly pathogenic avian influenza. People keep saying it's bird flu, monkeypox. It just, if you were trying to market a pandemic, like you'd market a new car or market a new, sales campaign, these are flops.
Yeah, they do kind of sound like kindergarten recitals. Monkeypox, bird flu. It sounds like a game. Um, so is that what you're saying about? Now I get the whole, Moderna doesn't need to get paid by the government. But at the same time, you can't really, scold a dog for going after a bone if the government's handing out a subsidy. No one ever, have you ever turned down a tax rebate?
Right.
I mean, come on, like stimulus check is BS. No one said I don't need this. You take it. So I get that. But in terms of the, I guess not preferential, but the pre-ordering is it has this oh I mean I know to a degree it is, but has the number of just like pre-acquisitions of vaccines, is this what we've seen in the last 4 years? Is this how it's always been historically? I know that I know like continuity of government. I know there's a lot of military acquisitions of these things, and they're in, different ammunition depots and bunkers throughout the United States. It's all documented in Garrett Graff's book Raven Rock. But in terms of this, what we hear about, you just said, they're already starting in Finland or Norway, or they're, 40 million doses here and 80 million doses there. Is this how it's always been, and am I just becoming cognizant of it, or is this something else entirely?
I don't know. It's clearly now, I guess, the standard for pandemic management. But when you go back to routine childhood vaccines, the companies have to, develop them. They have the intellectual property. They're responsible for testing them, taking the dossier to the FDA, getting approval, lobbying for them to get on the schedule. And then they have to produce the vaccines, and insurance companies have to buy them in order for the whole thing to work. Now, with childhood vaccines, the what crept in over the last few years is a government program to say, listen, if people are uninsured or poorly insured and they don't have vaccine coverage, the government will step in and just pay for the vaccines. So it's taken away that market-driven nature of things. And then on top of that, states say, well, the kids can't go to school unless they take the vaccines. Well, now the government's paying for the vaccines. There's no reason why you shouldn't get them. You can kind of see this. So my understanding is currently today, the government does purchase a large fraction of all the vaccines in children that are taken routinely. Now, states like Texas have philosophical, religious, and medical exemptions. You don't have to take it if you don't want to. But in other states like California, New York, Connecticut, there's effectively no exemptions, none. I mean, you can't even really get a medical exemption. And so that means, because the COVID-19 vaccines are on the schedule, that means the kids have to take everything on the schedule to go to school. So we have kids who are getting injected with the COVID-19 shots right now with no idea of what the cumulative toxicity is going to be.
A little bit of a departure from the beaten path of medicine and vaccines. Just terms of like 100,000 foot view, just kind of broad, detach yourself and just look at it as a whole. If you were to, I don't know, look at just kind of like a historian. Does it seem like, I mean, at least in my life, maybe in the last, in your life, that the United States and thus the world, but we kind of just move, and I know this is going to sound like a 10 IQ take, but that we just kind of move from giant thing to giant thing, and that it's 9/11, it's terror, it's TSA, Department of Homeland Security, giant influx of cash, it's reshaping the world order, change of, laws, CIA, extraordinary rendition, bases all over the world, and our allies all have huge upticks in military acquisitions. And then you have '08, and it's the bailout, the biggest bailout ever, $750 billion, and all these new requirements of real estate agents and loan officers and mortgages, and the Dodd-Franks or whichever act it was. And then it's Trump, and then it's just hyperfixation on orange man bad, race riots, and then it's COVID. And it's COVID comes in, and just again, it's just like a flaming dump truck, and everything's from masks to hand sanitizer to 6 feet apart to Zoom to, and then it's Russia Ukraine, and then it's Slava Ukraini, and we need to give them $100 zillion, and Russia's bad, and And then it's October 7th, and we have to stand with Israel and Saudi Arabia and Iran. They're gonna attack, and we can't let them attack. And then it's and when's the other shoe gonna drop in Taiwan? And now it's coming back to, is it Mpox? Is it bird flu? Is it disease X? And is that just kind of what we do as a, and this has nothing to do with medicine, but more so just you're an intelligent guy. Is this just how we move, like as a like hyper modern society? It's just jump to suck the oxygen out of the room to we're doing this now. It's like a new crash diet. This is what we're doing, and the government's going to invest $100 zillion, and we're doing this. And is that just what we do? Is, and I know this is a deviation from COVID, but do you get what I'm saying?
Well, the theme of everything you just mentioned is destabilization. That is, destabilize us, make us feel uneasy, make us feel afraid. Um, and I think what's partly fueling this is the lack of any type of investigative reporting, the lack of embedded reporting. Remember when there used to be a fair balance rule that was suspended, I think, under the Bush administration. It used to be, if you reported on something, you
Yeah.
had to show two sides of the issue. That doesn't exist anymore. To make matters worse now, Tommy, is what's called clickbait.
Hmm.
Clickbait is show a picture of something, anything, say what you want to say about it, and you create your own headlines. Okay. So you go on Instagram and any one of these news feeds does it. Rebel News does it all the time. I was interested with I've been interested in this whole issue of the border crisis. So there was an image of some people that looked like they probably weren't American somewhere in the Southwest. I think in the distance there was a border wall or something, and they were lined up, and it says. It had some headline about migrants pouring into the United States, and I looked carefully at it, and it kind of looked like all men. They had no suitcases, and they were all wearing down jackets. Some of them had gloves. They looked very cold. I can tell you, Tommy, I'm 6 hours from the border right now. We haven't had to wear a down jacket down there in 6 months or 8 months. That was not any contemporary picture. And not only that, if people had crossed the border, they're running for their lives, they wouldn't be lining up wearing down jackets. To me, that looked like some picture from somewhere, maybe from last winter, of some day workers who were waiting to get on a truck and go dig some ditches somewhere. It wasn't a bunch of people fleeing for their lives, trying to come in the United States and take over. So we're seeing this all over now, this archetypal fear. So this border crisis, which, by the way, virtually every country in the world is declaring a border crisis. Germany, France, Sweden, United States, Canada, Quebec, it just keeps going and going. Border crisis everywhere. The theme is you're being invaded, and that invader is going to stab you with a knife. That invader is going to take your job. The last debate, Trump said that the invader, they're taking your jobs. To make matters worse, they're going to commit crimes. There's nothing that invokes more fear into people than being told they're being invaded, or in fact, you're going to be victimized in a crime. I mean, heck, I'm Irish. We should know anything, Tommy. The Irish were on the island, and the Vikings used to come over from Denmark, and they would just clean our clocks. We were invaded and robbed and raped and pillaged, and that happened routinely, about 1,600 years ago. So it's like, why wouldn't we be afraid? But without actually being able to see it ourselves, that's the hardest thing. We can't go anywhere and see it. So with Trump, at the last debate with Biden, he said 20 million people have come in illegally. The number's all over the place, by the way. Some in Senate testimony, it's 7.2. Some people say it's 11, 13. So anytime there's an unstable number that's kind of not, anchored to anything, that makes you wonder. But I was curious. I looked at deportations. That's a hard number. You can look it up on any government website. So Obama, in his last 4 years, he deported about 1.3 million. Trump, in his 4 years, it was about 1.2 million. So about 300,000 a year. He just said there's 20 million illegals. No one in Team Trump is talking a deportation of 20 million people and what that would take. U.S. Customs and Border Control says they have ID on everybody. So it's not hard to ID them and find them. It's not like people just, can live under a rock for years and years and years. So I think it's just, this is a series of illusions, a series of deceptions. The same thing with this very frustrating Russian-Ukraine war with no embedded reporting, no tank battles, no prisoner exchanges, no in the air. Putin seems to be, unworried. Zelensky just, suspended elections, kept himself in power. We're told vast amounts of money is going over there, but there's no evidence really there's any money going over there. It's just the whole thing is just, again, it's just the theme is destabilization.
It's kind of the allegory of the cave. Like it's, and I know it's simple to say you can't see any of us, but see any of this, but there's some real truth to that, and it's ironic for me to say because I do this podcast and talk to so many people, but if you ever just check out for even 72 hours, I mean, there is nothing going on. And I know that's I get it. I'm healthy. I'm in America. It's 2020. I understand all the all the tags, but I mean, really, you just like walk around. I was driving up to my parents this past weekend and just in a Honda Civic, just driving, and I thought, without my phone, which is the biggest indicator because technology,
Mm-hmm.
just looking, do you really know what year it is? Obviously, it's 2024, but I was just like, how different is this from 2004?
Yeah, I mean, well,
Nothing.
Tommy, did you
Nothing.
see any migrants on the side of the road driving to
Well,
your parents' house?
and that's the other thing. You go, where is that? And then you go, well, everyone's at each other's throat. And no,
No, no,
a hair sign there, a MAGA
no,
flag there,
no.
sporadic,
Tommy, we're 60 days away from the election. You go through most neighborhoods, there's no signs
nothing.
on the lawns.
I'm in Portland, Maine. This is not like a conservative place. I haven't seen I just went to the grocery store before this.
Yeah,
There's nothing. You hold the door
nothing.
for an old woman,
But
you know.
Tommy, that's the point. There's essentially nothing going on. I'm in Texas. Listen, I'm 6 hours from the border. I've been to San Antonio, 2 hours from the border. There are no migrants streaming up and down the roads. I can tell you, 2 million migrants that went in from Syria into Europe in 2010. Europe was teeming with Syrians. You couldn't miss them. They were on every
Yeah.
street corner, on every train, smoking everywhere. If we had 2 million people come into Texas. Now, Governor Abbott in writing says there's 6 million. We'd be overwhelmed. I'd be stepping over them, going out to my car in the parking lot. None, zero. I have my patients coming in, their heads in their hands saying, Doc, I can't handle it. The migrant crisis, it's terrible. I said, well, how many did you step over outside? They go, none. I said, how many did you see driving here? You drove all the way from San Angelo? None. And so, this issue of, you're right, if you didn't have your phone. So, I can tell you, it's healthier to have a period of time where you do disconnect. It's best in exercise. I go exercising almost every day. I see people outside walking or running or biking, but they always have something in their ears. They're always connected. I think it's best to get that out, get a couple hours of look around. The bullets aren't flying. The only place I think right now it'd be very, very uncomfortable. You got to put your feet in other people's shoes. That I think you and I would be really uncomfortable is put us boots on the ground in one of the refugee camps in Gaza right now.
Yeah.
I've seen enough there. I think that's legit. I think those people are literally fleeing from their lives every day. Palestinians have no tanks, no anti-aircraft fire. They've got no planes. So they have no way to fight. against what's being brought to them in terms of bombs or invaders.
There's no hiding from that. That is outright genocide. And you can almost see the importance of taking that in, taking stock of that. Because what you don't want is you don't want the, well, I don't, if I look outside, I don't see any migrants. I don't see any Russian tanks. Oh, it's all BS. That's also not true. You can't
That's
throw it all out the window. You
You're
do
right,
get something
but
like,
here's with no embedded reporting. So here's the problem. If you and I would just go to Ukraine and we go to some line that's claimed to be controlled by Russia or Ukraine, we could actually do our own assessment. But short of doing that, Tommy, we can't possibly know because no one will do that. No one will even fly a drone over and show us who's controlling
hmm,
what. With all the cell phones, if something was really happening in Ukraine, I think it would be like Gaza. You'd have a million cell phone pictures. And believe me, if you want to see some rubble, go on
look at Gaza.
Instagram and
Yeah.
type in Palestine, and you just see destruction and bodies and people running for their lives. If there was something going on in Ukraine, you would actually see it. You see the images because people can't help it but take their cell
Yeah.
phones. And you just don't have that public confirmation that something going on. You can take a bunch of pictures up and down the highways of Texas. I can tell you there are no migrants. All you're shown is an occasional image here and there, maybe some bad guy in a headlock when there's some claim he did something. But the U.S. Department of Labor statistics shows that we don't have more migrant laborers. They're not out in the fields picking corn. There's not enough people waiting tables to have the restaurants go full steam. There's nobody lining up outside Home Depot looking for work. I mean, there's just no signs that we have this claimed migrant crisis. So you saw how this, I knew we were going to get into politics, but,
No, who cares?
of those who claim there's a border crisis or a migrant crisis, the people I know, 99.9% are on the right wing,
Hmm.
right? And of those who claim there's a climate crisis, that it's an existential climate crisis, we're going to melt away, it's terrible, 99.9% are on the left wing. So the question on the table is, can real crises, can they exist with that polar degree of interest and support? Or is the reality is both extremes are exaggerating something for political gain? Is it possible? Would they ever do it? Do the right wingers think their go-to issue is the border crisis? If they keep showing that enough on TV, keep conjuring up enough fear that somehow the border, that is going to somehow win the election for them. And do the left wingers, do they think that the climate crisis is such a big deal? And the heat or a problem with what is that going to be enough to move the needle? So you saw how this manipulated at the debate. Trump says 20 million, they're stealing your jobs. And I noticed that Harris Biden approach was, well, yeah, we made some adjustments at the border and the numbers are way down. Well, they can do that because there's probably no crisis to begin with. And so all you have to do is make a statement like that and say, we have it. If Trump wins, I predict within a day or two, say, oh, yeah, I solved the border crisis. It's solved. The only way you can solve a crisis that quickly is if it doesn't exist to begin with. So you think about it. It's very interesting. The climate crisis, you can do anything you say you're handling. Well, we have more electric cars. We solve the climate crisis. So these are things that I think people have to contemplate and really think their way through. If there is a real crisis, as you said, Tommy, when you go outside, you better see it. You better see it. So if there's a hurricane, you better get wet. If there's a migrant crisis, you better be stepping over people in your parking lot. They ought to be in your neighborhoods. They ought to be everywhere. It takes about 7,500 people homeless to trash out a city. That's San Francisco. I went to San Francisco recently. Believe me, there's 75 homeless. They're not migrants. They look like they're Americans to me. Their English sounded fine when they were begging for money. So it's 7,500. If there was 7,500 migrants in Dallas, it'd be overwhelmed. It'd be like San Francisco. We'd be stepping over them. 75. If you're you're up there in Portland. If you had 7,500 homeless in Portland, you'd be, Austin. You were down in Austin, Tommy. Austin's
Hmm.
got about 500 to 1,000 homeless. It's enough where you'll see them in little camps,
Hmm.
under the highway and stuff. You know, millions of them, Tommy, you can't hide them. People said, well, Dr. McCullough, they're putting them in secret planes and secret buses, and they're going to secret hotels and living there for years. In fact, they're just waiting in these hotels to vote for Biden. People have actually told me this, people on the right wing. And I examined that and I said, well, it's really hard to hide people for years in hotels. What's the hotel capacity of the United States? It's only 5 million. Now, I've stayed in hundreds of hotels. I've been in hundreds of cities in the United States in the last 4 years. I haven't seen any groups of migrants.
Hmm.
None. None in hotel lobbies. People get bored. They start hanging out. Never. I went to New York City. I looked all over Central Park, Tommy. No migrants. None. Went to all the hotels. Where are they? None. So I think like so many things, I think we're being deceived. I think we're being deceived on a border crisis, which everyone is declaring. Listen, when I went to Germany, all the right wingers said there's a border crisis. Same thing in France. I said, where is it? Where's all the people pouring in? Sweden recently had a mass protest because of a border crisis. Where is it? Quebec's border crisis. That's just north of you. Are people pouring in from Maine and New York and Massachusetts into Quebec? How can they have a border crisis in Quebec?
And it seems to be the only Venn diagram that is remotely agreed upon. The climate, the border, these are your kind of polarized differences. Is there does seem to be not universal, but as close as you're going to get to a repulsion to what is happening in Palestine. That's the only thing that you find in them. You can't even agree on kids in the US. One side is, well, they should, gender
Mhm.
affirmation. The other side's this is holy. The only thing that you have any kind of general agreement in is is the it's an air war genocide. And
Mm,
it's almost like it's so real and it's so there that you start to see that that's not what anyone really wants. And by that I mean is you got to get the new whey protein. You got to get the brand new gym membership. New Year's Day, we're going to do the new thing.
mm.
I got the new supplement. I'm on the Ozempic and I'm going keto. And these are all the things you do to get in shape, but no one ever wants to just go to the gym and start doing push-ups and eat less calories because it's real and it's painful and you don't want to do it. But deep down, that's what you have to do. It's all these other things are like boutique window shopping. Well, I'm a pro green, but I'm anti-abortion, but the one general thing is even Ukraine, Russia, you can say Russia's 100 times bigger. Okay, you can say Ukraine has Nazis. All right, but there still seems to be military age men fighting. You could say, well, this is the old rich men make the young and naive go die. But that's as old as time. There is still, U.S. Bradley tank or APC shooting at Russian tanks. You do see it.
Is it?
No
I mean,
one wants to.
I've looked for those types of
Well, no,
clips.
what I mean is you can find them though. There is still you can find
They're not making it easy. A standard news item would be, now from, news from overseas, and there
yeah.
would be somebody reporting on, casualty counts or what have you. You turn on Fox or CNN, they pretty much now do hour by hour on the president, little details of the
Yeah.
presidential race, and they've been on this for years.
What I mean though is like though sparse, you can still find some of Ukraine Russia. There's not a lot. The video I'm talking about is the video I saw last winter. It's a there's a Russian
Oh,
tank in the snow. It's
okay.
getting shot at. My point is about what you were saying about Gaza. You don't have all you have is just pictures of just caved in concrete structures, mile after mile, and you
Yeah.
find the picture of like the bloody child shoe. And it's just like no one wants to touch it. I think the last time you and I we talked, you talked about how both Biden and Trump, it seems like the only thing they were both kind of on board with was pushing the vaccine. You can see it again with this is you have Trump saying, if I don't get elected, Israel's gone. You have Kamala coming out and saying, I won't stop weapons shipment to Israel. it's like the one thing that most people agree on. It's like this is it's a kill box, it's a slaughterhouse.
Hmm.
No one wants to touch because it's almost that it's real and it's not something like I drive a green car. And it's also what do you do when Trump and Kamala are both, no, I stand with Israel more, or I stand with Israel more. And you're
Well,
like,
geez, I mean, Israel's a nuclear superpower. They have military supremacy. They can do whatever they want to do. So
and it's like
if you
no
go
one
back to
wants to touch
October,
it.
if you go back to October 7th, and the Hamas leaders of Gaza do admit that, they did do,
Well, sure. Yeah,
uh,
yeah, no, sure.
they carried out the attack
Yeah.
October 7th. Now, the reports are about 1,200 Hamas went into this rave, which they did right on the border of
Mhm.
Gaza, which they should be nowhere close to Gaza. If any reasonable Israeli would be hundreds of miles from Gaza, but they do it right next to the wall. It's a wall essentially of an outside prison, and they come over. Now it's unclear how they come over because they don't have paragliders, they don't have planes. All that turned out to be fabricated. Looks like they just kind of came over in pickup trucks and stuff. But they come over and they do kill about 1,200 Israelis, and they take out a lot of IDF people who must have been asleep at the switch. But then what we're told is that 1,300 Hamas are taken out right there. So the scorecard is 1,200 Israelis down, 1,300 Hamas up, down, and then we're told that the hostages are taken. But instead of just going in and getting the hostages, again, because Israel has military supremacy, they can do whatever they
Outright.
want to do,
Yes.
right? They just go in and get the hostages. They say, no, we're going to let the hostages get away. We're going to turn off the water, the power, the electricity, and food, and then we're going to wait. Then we're going to go in. But really, what they do is they just start a bombing campaign. No real earnest search for prisoners, and this goes on for a year. This essentially
Still
was a
going.
green light to completely destroy Gaza, and without really any thought about the Palestinians. So, I can imagine there probably are some hardcore Israelis that want to completely exterminate the Palestinians.
Sure.
They certainly want to deny their right to exist. That's sure. They're sure. So this idea of, Israel has complete assurances they exist because they do exist and they're a military superpower. But the Palestinians have nothing. So this idea of denying the right to exist is one-sided, but it's against the Palestinians. But this other issue of, okay, now we're a year into it. There's no bona fide search for the prisoners. Many of them could be killed, or some were killed, but they could be under all the rubble that they've created. The Palestinians are in tents now out in the desert. And so there's no thought of, okay, what's the end game? There's no end game. There's no brokered deal for Egypt for them to be a mass displacement into Egypt or Jordan or anywhere else. There's just, so what is the end game? You've got 1.5 million people. You've got 40,000 Palestinians dead, about half of them kids. You ask the Israelis, what's next? I mean, there's could be a few more buildings to destroy. But I mean, you think about it. Like, you can ask Netanyahu, what's next now? You have 1.5 million people homeless. What is next? And the only thing we saw, which was, I think, the biggest caricature, Tommy, is we saw, well, okay, what's next is we're going to give them oral polio vaccines. Did you see that?
I did.
Well, the oral polio vaccine, that's actually the live attenuated vaccine. That creates more polio. That's going to put polio into whatever water that they're trying to drink. God knows their water is probably not safe at all. That's going to make it far worse. They weren't doing the injected polio vaccine.
They're
In
what
fact, the case that they reported was a case from the vaccine. It wasn't, a spontaneous de novo case. So this is a real mess. If you ask those people, oh, I stand with Israel, say, well, okay, well, just tell me the end game. Just tell me in the end, what is the end? Is the end,
extermination.
complete? Is it death of 1.5 million people? Is it displacement, or do they get to go back to their homes and rebuild? Like, what is the end? What we hear is, well, we're rooting out Hamas or whatever. It's like, well, okay, but after that, what is the end? and no one can tell you what the end is.
Well, it's because I think everyone knows what it is. They're going to kill them all. They're going to
Mm,
kill them all. You, that's what they're doing. They're just, I don't, I don't doubt Hamas did what they did. I have a very hard time believing that that's other than like the North and South Korean DMZ, that's the most surveilled border in the world. And
mhm.
this just happened. I don't doubt that it happened. I really have no belief that it was truly a surprise.
Yeah.
I think there was a calculation. This is me speaking for myself, not for Dr. McCullough. I think there was a calculation. And they said, let this happen, 1200. We're going to go in. We're going to bulldoze it. And then we're going to occupy it. That's what they're
Mm.
doing. That's what I think was going to happen.
They
And
still have this kind of problem though of 1.5 million people. That's a lot of people to die.
they'll find a way
It,
to do it. There will be either a terror attack that they'll say was ISIS or something, or it will be it'll probably won't be an outright like air attack, but it will be something. There will be a way. They're going to kill them all, or if they don't kill them all, they're being removed. They're going to be refugees somewhere else. But Palestine, as we know it, will no longer be occupied by anyone other than corpses and bulldozers. That's
mm.
what I believe.
Well, Tommy, the Palestinians have survived the Israelites about 3 times historically. They survived the Romans. That was a tough one. And the worst one was the Turks. The Turks were really bad. They survived them about 800 years, Ottoman Empire. So the Palestinians are in the long run survival business. So this is
Sure.
going to be something to really watch and see. But we see all the techniques, right? Well, Hamas is fighting them. Well, there's no evidence. I don't see any evidence of a fight at all. It looks like defenseless people being bombed. The other one is, well, the Palestinians won't make a deal. What are they supposed to do? You're going to make some type of deal, or the more recent one was, well, they killed some of the hostages. It's like, well, yes, they've killed 20,000 kids. Yeah, believe me, I think every time you get a chance to see a hostage, they're probably going to be killed. I mean, that's just tough. That's kind of how it goes when there's that degree of mass murder. They're not going to say, well, here's your hostages. Thank you very much for killing 20,000 kids. It's
Yeah.
just too big at this point in time. So, the only end game I see is at some point in time, Israel gets fatigued on this thing. There's enough, loss of impetus here, and the Palestinians spend, another couple hundred years rebuilding, and they survive. There's just this mass displacement. It just hasn't worked so far. They're not easily displaced. No one's been able to displace them. I mean, don't forget, within Israel proper, what 20% of Israeli citizens are Palestinians. They're not displaced.
Mm.
So they're not as easily displaced as people think. And they speak Arabic, they speak Hebrew, which is a limited set of Arabic. Palestinians have been through so much, Tommy, that I think they'll find a way to survive. But we'll see. Obviously, they're surviving within Israel.
Sure.
So,
And it's,
right.
I think the kind of the one thing we're seeing, and there's really nothing to do about it, is from Ukraine to this is the real currency, the real animating force behind the modern world is the arms industry. And I know that's not
Mhm.
a bold take, but I mean, you're really seeing it in kind of stark contrast. It what's the one thing that both candidates agree upon? It's like we can't stop arms shipments. You're kind of
Yeah.
seeing the like the black hand of death for what it is.
Yeah,
It's
it's the business
munitions.
of war. It's kind of how things work, and also the quote war that we see. When was the last time we saw a fair fight?
Oh, I mean,
These aren't fair fights. These are lopsided
yeah.
invasions. Recently, I went on a show with McGregor, who is the led. He was celebrated in this Iraq war
Uh-huh.
against the Republican Guard. I was like, wow, is that the last semi-qualified military unit we faced? Did we face anything of any reality after that in Iraq, or how about Afghanistan? The Israelis aren't, Israelis don't even have a tank to fight against. Palestinians don't have a tank. They don't have a plane. There aren't any fair fights out there. These wars that we're involved with are basically complete invasions, and they're completely lopsided. I mean, one of my patients told me the other day, we were talking about Navy SEAL training. And he said, oh, so-and-so went through Navy SEAL training and this and that. And he goes, well, he was deployed. I said, did anybody actually ever shoot a bullet? Oh, yeah. When he was somewhere in Yemen or somewhere, there was a bullet. I said, have our Navy SEALs ever faced a qualified shooter? Ever? I mean, it's just a question. I mean, since World War II, I think we've been in a lot of lopsided situations where there's just one side has overwhelming military superiority over the other. And when that exists, the question is, well, what do you do? What do you do when it's not a fair fight? Most of the time, the answer is you end up destroying the other country, killing a lot of innocent people, and then you end up getting out without any real accomplishment. That's what we did to Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
That's
1.5
what's
million.
happening to the Palestinians. Looks like that's what happened in Afghanistan. So, Tommy, we're gonna have to call
Yeah,
it.
no, we'll wrap it up. But no, I was gonna say my final thoughts are it makes you wonder if that's what they're really kind of jonesing for is an actual near peer competitor, which would be China and Russia. They want an actual conflagration. And I fear that's what we're Ukraine, Gaza, Taiwan. We want an actual
We want a
full
real fight. I don't think we do. I don't think we do. I don't even think Israel wants a real fight. I mean, their real fight that they potentially could have with is Iran. I think Iran kind of blew their bluster when they flew all those model planes into the Iron Dome and didn't do anything. I don't think there's any real fights out there. And I don't think people want real fights. People want to show a lot of bravado and a lot of toughness in these grossly lopsided conflicts. Like, oh, I took out the Republican Guard, or I went over there and killed a bunch of Iraqis. One time I was at a stage presentation. It was one of these sharpshooters, one of these kind of heavily testosterone infused, tattooed guys. And he said, yeah, shooting Iraqis like shooting ducks in a barrel. I said, well, that doesn't sound like much of a challenge. I said, did you face any tough shooters? Anybody really take you down? No. It's like, okay. I mean, Israeli Defense Force is not facing any resistance here at all. It's a bunch of women in burqas with their kids running for their lives. So, the military industrial complex, in my view, since World War II, has not been too impressive. As an American citizen, I don't feel good about investing my money in the strength of a military.
No.
I just don't feel good about it. We'd have to do much better. Listen, defend our homeland, fine.
Sure.
But this idea of taking the fight to the other guys, and the best defense is offense, and we're just gonna, the neocon, we're just gonna put the American Raj, put our boots on everybody's necks. It's not working. It's not working, and it's really causing a lot of harm. Tom, we got to leave it here.
Yeah. Well, you'll wrap it
Talk
up.
to you later.
Awesome call. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Guys, please go in the description. Please go follow him on Twitter. Please go grab his book. Thank you so much for your time, sir.